I live in a 2-bedroom apartment over a nail salon, the kind of place where the smell of acetone sneaks up the stairwell and the pipes bang every time someone flushes downstairs. Most mornings start the same. My alarm goes off at 6:10. I smack it twice, then lay there for a minute trying to remember what day it is and how many bills are due this week. By 6:20, I'm in the kitchen. The place is small, just enough room for a stove, a fridge, and a wobbly table I got off Facebook Marketplace, but it's mine. The coffee maker sputters to life, filling the air with that dark, bitter smell that says, "All right, let's try this again." I pack my lunch while it brews, leftovers in a plastic container, an apple, whatever snack bars were on sale. I glance at the magnet-covered fridge where the rent notice is clipped, $450 due on the 1st, and next to it, the electric bill I still need to pay. Utilities run me close to $400 a month these days. Every year they creep up a little more. I tap open my banking app with my thumb while the toast pops. Checking, $2,317. Savings, $860. Not terrible, not great. It's a Tuesday, which means my son, Tyler, will be asking for gas money, and my daughter, Mia, will probably text about a club fee at school. I mentally shuffle numbers. If I push the phone bill to Friday, I can cover the copay for Mia's inhaler refill. It's like that most mornings, a quiet little math problem before sunrise. I'm 48 now, divorced for almost 10 years. Tyler is 19, in his second year at the community college across town, still living in the dorms during the week and bringing his laundry home on weekends. Mia's 16, a junior in high school, living with me full-time. They've spent most of their lives in this apartment, or one just like it, second floor, thin walls, a view of the parking lot and the backs of other buildings. Their father, Mark, lives about 20 minutes away in a townhouse his new wife owns. He's the charming one, the storyteller. I'm the one who keeps track of when the oil needs changing and who's due for a dentist appointment. By 7:00, Mia wanders into the kitchen, hair in a messy bun, hoodie half-zipped, scrolling her phone. I hand her a bowl of cereal, and she grunts something that sounds like thanks. Teenager translation, she's tired, but she knows I'm trying. Tyler's already texted, "Mom, can you send 40 for books? They added a lab fee." I stir sugar into my coffee and text back, "I'll see what I can do. Might have to wait till Thursday." He replies with a thumbs up. Work is 10 minutes away if I catch the green lights, 20 if I don't. I'm an office assistant at a small medical clinic front desk, phones, check-ins, copies, paperwork. The lobby smells like hand sanitizer and that lemony cleaner they use on the floors. By 8:30, I'm in my chair behind the counter, headset on, computer booted up. "Good morning, Dr. Patel's office. This is Laura. How can I help you?" I say that so many times a day it almost stops feeling like English. But it's steady. It's health insurance and a 401k, and just enough vacation days to see Tyler's games and Mia's band concerts. Most of the time, my life feels like a long to-do list. Renewal forms for Mia's inhaler, FAFSA reminders for Tyler, oil changes, grocery lists, scheduling my own dentist appointment 6 months late. I keep a spiral notebook in my purse with everything written down, dates, amounts, deadlines, as much for my own sanity as anything else. I've always been the one who handled the admin, even when Mark and I were still together. He used to joke that I was the CFO of the family. Back then, I thought it meant he appreciated me. Now I know it just meant he could forget everything and blame me if something got missed. Kids' childhoods are etched into receipts and statements, daycare bills from when they were toddlers, school supply lists, soccer registration, orthodontist payment plans, band trip deposits, gas money for practices, laptops bought on Black Friday deals. Whenever there was something for them, I found a way. Sometimes that meant working Saturdays at the clinic when someone went on vacation. Sometimes it meant using a credit card I swore I'd never touch again. Sometimes it meant telling myself I'd buy new shoes next month and then not doing it. I didn't do it for a pat on the back. I did it because they needed it. Mark paid child support sometimes. It was supposed to be $600 a month for both kids, but there were months it came late, or short, or not at all. I never dragged him back to court. I guess I thought keeping things cordial would make co-parenting easier, and honestly, I was too tired to fight. When the kids needed something and the money wasn't there yet, I covered it. He'll get us back next month, I'd tell myself, and sometimes he did. Sometimes he didn't. On paper, I'm the one with the smaller income. Mark works in sales, switches companies every few years, always chasing a better commission. He's good with people. He can charm the pants off a room full of strangers. At school events, teachers would light up when he walked in. "You must be Mark's kids," they'd say to Tyler and Mia. "He's so funny." I was the one driving them there, filling out the emergency contact forms, paying the participation fees online at midnight after my shift. Most nights, after dinner and dishes, and whatever crisis the day brought, I'd sit at this same wobbly kitchen table with a pile of envelopes and my notebook. I'd write down what I'd paid that week: $35 to the school cafeteria account, $20 cash for Mia's field trip, $48 copay for Tyler's urgent care visit when he twisted his ankle. Not some fancy budgeting app, just lines in blue ink and little check marks when things cleared. It made me feel like I at least knew where the money went, even if there was never quite enough of it. First hint that something was off came on a Wednesday night, about a year after Tyler left for college. I was standing at the stove frying chicken, the smell of oil and paprika filling the apartment, when Mia walked in and dropped her backpack with a heavy thud. "Dad says he paid for everything when we were kids," she said, not looking at me, rummaging in the fridge for a soda. Like that he basically supported us. The spatula paused in my hand. "What?" she shrugged, took a sip. "We were talking about college stuff. He said he always had to cover everything because you couldn't." She trailed off, eyes on the floor. I turned the burner down, heart thudding a little harder. "Is that what he told you?" "I don't know, Mom," she said quickly. "I'm just saying what he said. I don't really want to be in the middle." She grabbed her phone and disappeared down the hall. I stood there in the kitchen, oil popping softly in the pan, thinking about soccer fees, inhalers, and all the nights I went to bed with a knot in my stomach because I wasn't sure how I'd stretch the week. It stung, but I told myself it was just Mark talking big. He always did. I didn't know it then, but that was the first little crack, the first hint that the story of our past was being told a very different way somewhere else. The letter came on a Thursday, stuffed between a grocery flyer and a takeout menu in my mailbox. I almost missed it. Plain white envelope, county seal in the corner, my name typed in that cold, official font. I opened it at the kitchen counter with one hand, while the other stirred a pot of boxed macaroni and cheese for Mia. The smell of powdered cheese and boiling pasta filled the apartment as I unfolded the papers. Notice of hearing, it said at the top. Petition to modify child support. My ex-husband's name, Mark, was listed as the petitioner. I blinked, wiped my fingers on a dish towel, and kept reading. There it was in black and white. Petitioner asserts that respondent has failed to meaningfully contribute to the support of the minor children and seeks appropriate adjustment. I had to read that sentence 3 times before the words made sense. Failed to contribute, me. The woman who knew exactly how much a pair of cleats cost in 2014 and what a school band uniform payment plan looked like in 2018. Mom, everything okay? Mia called from the living room, where the TV was throwing blue light against the wall. Yeah, I lied automatically. Just mail. I finished dinner on autopilot, nodded through Mia's story about a chemistry quiz, and smiled at the right moments. After she went to her room, I sat back down at the table with the notice and read every line slowly. Mark was claiming that he had borne the majority of day-to-day expenses, and that I had not consistently supported the children financially. He wanted child support recalculated, retroactive, in his favor. The first thing I felt was this hot, embarrassed flush, like I'd been caught doing something wrong. Then the embarrassment morphed into something harder, heavier, a mix of anger and disbelief. I thought about all the nights I'd sat in that very chair, juggling which bill to pay late so I could cover a field trip fee. I thought about the note on my fridge, pay band due $75. And I thought about Mia's words the week before. Dad says he paid for everything. I called my sister Judy, because that's what I do when the ground shifts. You are kidding me, she said after I read her the key parts. I could picture her in her own kitchen, hand on hip, eyebrows raised, telling a judge you never supported your kids. Is he out of his mind? I don't know, I said, staring at the laminate grain of my table. Maybe he actually believes it. Judy snorted. Doesn't matter what he believes. What matters is what you can prove. That word stuck, prove. I'd always just done what needed doing. I wasn't used to thinking of my life as something I might have to defend like a homework assignment. Over the next few days, the story from Mark's side started to trickle in. Tyler called one evening between classes, sounding uneasy. Mom, Dad says he's going back to court because you never helped with support. That true? I swallowed hard. Tyler, you know that's not true. I know you were always the one paying for stuff when we were kids, he said. But I'm just telling you what he's saying. He makes it sound like he was carrying everything. I carried plenty, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I'm not going to drag you into the middle, okay? Just, please remember what you saw with your own eyes. There was a pause. Yeah, okay, love you. Mia was quieter about it. I heard her on FaceTime with her dad one night through the thin apartment walls, his voice louder than he probably realized. You know, I've always been the one making sure you kids had what you needed, he said. Your mom, well, she tried, but she just never really contributed like I did. My hands clenched around the dish sponge in the sink. Mia didn't answer him, but she closed her bedroom door after that. The official narrative, the one that would sit in a file on some courthouse shelf, was being written in a way that erased me. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the story of who I'd been as a mother. One Saturday afternoon, after staring at the court notice on the fridge for 3 days, I pulled an old shoebox down from the top of my closet. It was one of those sturdy ones from a pair of boots I'd bought on clearance years ago. Inside was a mess of folded papers, daycare invoices from when Tyler was 4 and Mia was 2, pediatrician bills, camp registration forms, check carbons from when we still used a checkbook for everything. I sat cross-legged on the bedroom floor, dust in my nose, sorting them into piles. Daycare, elementary school fees, middle school activity forms, high school band payments, prescription copies. Every time the kids had needed something and I dug into my wallet, there was a chance I'd tossed the proof in this box. Not because I planned to use it, just because I'm the kind of person who stuffs receipts, just in case. After an hour, the floor was covered in little stacks. I got up slowly, knees popping, and carried them to the kitchen table. The shoebox went back to the closet. The paper stayed. Next, I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking. Rows and rows of transactions stared back at me. Rent, groceries, gas, but also Springfield School District 65, Youth Soccer ASOC 120, OC Transfer to M Davis 150, and hundreds more. I started scrolling back year by year. 2025, 2024, 2023. Each line telling a tiny piece of the story Mark was pretending never existed. I grabbed my spiral notebook and flipped to a clean page. At the top I wrote, Kids Expenses Proof. Under that, I drew columns, date, amount, description, for which child, proof, location. I'm not an accountant, but I know my way around a table when I need to. The first entry I wrote was from 3 months ago. $2,1075 band fee Mia bank statement, 2025, Feb, line 23. Then I added a note. Text from Mark 211. Thanks for covering band again. That reminded me, texts. I picked up my phone and scrolled through old conversations with Mark. Buried between passive-aggressive comments about schedule changes were messages like, Can you cover school supplies this year? I'm tapped out and appreciate you paying for Tyler's cleats. I'll get the next thing. Screenshots, I thought. I started taking them, one after another. My camera roll filled with proof I hadn't realized I was collecting in real time. At first, the whole exercise made me feel petty. Who keeps a log of every little thing they do for their kids? But as the pages filled, another feeling settled in, something closer to validation. I wasn't inventing anything. I was just writing down what had already happened. Over the next week, the quiet little war of words continued. Mark left a voicemail one morning while I was at work, his tone smooth. Hey, Laura, I saw the court date. Look, you know how this goes. They're going to look at who really paid for what. I'm just being honest about how it's been. No hard feelings. I saved the voicemail to my phone. He sent a longer text one night. You barely helped financially, and that's just the truth. I can't keep carrying it alone. I stared at those words, feeling that hot flush embarrassment again, then set the phone down and added another line to my notebook. 304 text claiming barely helped contrast with prior thank you texts. The official papers kept coming too. A thick envelope arrived from his lawyer with his financial affidavit inside. There in the narrative section he wrote, I have been the primary provider of financial support. The children's mother has not consistently contributed and at times provided no support at all. My hands shook as I read that. Not consistently. At times none at all. That night, after Mia went to bed, I pulled everything together. Old receipts, the printed bank statements I'd started downloading and highlighting, the school payment confirmations I dug from my email, the spiral notebook with its growing chart, the screenshots printed from my phone at the office printer during my lunch breaks. I bought a cheap binder from the Dollar Tree on my way home, navy blue, nothing fancy, and some plastic sheet protectors. At the table, I started to organize. Bank statements by year, school receipts by child, medical bills in their own section. In front of each group, I slipped in a copy of my handwritten spreadsheet pages, the lines of ink now forming a backbone to all the loose paper. It wasn't perfect, but it was something I could flip through and say, here, this is what happened. Day by day, that binder grew heavier. So did the pit in my stomach, but it changed shape. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a kind of focused anger, not wild, screaming anger, the quiet kind that makes you sit up straighter and sharpen your pencil. For years, I had told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that keeping the peace with Mark was better for the kids than dragging every missed payment into court. Now here he was, using my silence as an empty space to write his own story. If he was going to stand in front of a judge and say I never supported the kids, then I was going to walk in with every dollar I'd ever scraped together for them lined up in black and white. I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't trying to crush him. I just wanted the truth, the actual truth, to be visible to someone besides me. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before my alarm. For a few seconds in the dark, I forgot what day it was. Then my eyes landed on the navy binder sitting on the chair by the bedroom door, and it all came rushing back. My mouth felt like cotton. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, sat there a minute with my hands on my knees, and just breathed. Inhale, exhale. The apartment was quiet, no cars yet on the street, no pipes banging. I could hear Mia's soft snore through the wall. In the kitchen, I turned on the coffee maker more out of habit than desire. The smell didn't comfort me like usual. It just made me aware of the tightness in my chest. I poured a small cup anyway, took a few sips, then set it down untouched. My hands were shaking just enough that the spoon clinked against the mug. I dressed carefully. Not a power suit, couldn't afford that, even if I wanted to, but my nicest pair of black pants, a soft blue blouse that didn't wrinkle too easily, and the low heels I saved for interviews and graduations. I pulled my hair back, put on light makeup, and stared at myself in the mirror over the bathroom sink. 48 faint lines around my eyes, tired but not defeated. Just tell the truth, I whispered to my reflection. That's all you can do. Binder felt heavier than it should have when I picked it up. I checked that everything was there for the 100th time. The spreadsheet printouts, the bank statements with their highlighted lines, the school fee receipts, the copy bills, the printed texts where Mark thanked me for paying. I slid the notice of hearing into the front pocket, grabbed my keys and a granola bar, and stepped out into the cool morning. Mia met me at the door, hoodie zipped halfway, backpack slung over one shoulder. "You sure you don't want me to come?" she asked, chewing on her sleeve. I shook my head. "No, baby, you've got school, that's where you need to be," she nodded, eyes on the floor. "Okay, text me after." "I will," I kissed her forehead. "I love you." "Love you too," she mumbled, then headed down the stairs. The courthouse downtown was one of those old buildings with high ceilings and worn marble floors that echoed every footstep. I'd taken the day off from the clinic, told Dr. Patel I had a family matter. That was true enough. The metal detector beeped as the man in front of me walked through. When it was my turn, I stepped through, clutching the binder close, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with security. Family court was on the 3rd floor. The hallway outside the courtroom smelled faintly of coffee and floor cleaner. People sat on benches along the wall, tired parents in jeans, men in button-down shirts, women in cardigans, all holding some kind of paperwork. It looked how I felt wary braced. Mark was already there when I arrived. He wore a navy blazer I'd never seen before over a crisp white shirt, no tie. His new wife, Danielle, sat next to him in a pencil skirt and a silky blouse, her hair perfectly straightened, a leather portfolio in her lap. Mark's lawyer, a man in a gray suit with a shiny tie, stood talking to them in low tones. I stood at the other end of the bench, binder hugged to my chest. Mark glanced up and gave me a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked composed, like a man ready to tell a good story. "Laura," he said, standing up and walking a few steps toward me. "Hey, you look nice." "Morning," I said. My voice sounded thin in my own ears. "This is just a formality," he continued, lowering his tone like we were co-conspirators. "They'll look at the numbers and see how it's been. No hard feelings, okay?" My fingers tightened on the binder. "If they look at the numbers," I said, "I'll be fine." His jaw twitched, just for a second. Then the clerk opened the courtroom door and called our case. Inside, the room was smaller than I expected. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, giving everything a slightly green tint. The judge sat at the front behind a raised bench, flanked by the state seal and 2 flags. A court reporter sat to one side, hands poised over a stenograph machine. There were maybe 10 pew-like benches for the public. Most of them were empty. Case of Davis versus Davis, the clerk announced. Petition to modify child support. We stood as the judge entered. She was in her late 50s maybe, with short gray hair and a face that looked like it had seen every kind of story you could tell. She settled into her chair, flipped through a file, and then looked up. "Good morning," she said. "Mr. Davis, you are the petitioner. You'll have a chance to speak first. And Ms. Davis, you can respond and present any evidence. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honor," Mark's lawyer said smoothly. I nodded. My heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. Mark's lawyer started. He spoke in that polished way lawyers do, like he was narrating a documentary. "Your Honor, my client has been the primary financial caregiver for the children for the majority of their lives. He has consistently provided for their housing, food, clothing, education, and medical needs. Children's mother has, at best, contributed sporadically, and at times, not at all. We are asking the court to recognize the reality of the financial situation and adjust support accordingly." The judge looked at him, then at the affidavit in the file. "And you're alleging that Ms. Davis has not meaningfully contributed to the support of the children?" she asked, quoting his wording. "That is correct, Your Honor," he said. "My client can speak to that." She nodded. "Mr. Davis." Mark stepped up to the little stand in front of the bench. His hands were folded neatly. He looked every bit the reasonable, burdened father. "Well, Your Honor," he began with a practiced sigh, "I've always tried to do right by my kids. When we split, I took on most of the costs: rent, food, school supplies, sports, you name it. I paid child support, of course. But beyond that, I was the one constantly covering things. Their mom, she was in and out, not very consistent financially. There were times when I had to make hard choices just to make sure the kids had what they needed." He glanced back at me just for a second, then went on. "I'm not saying she never did anything. I'm just saying, compared to everything I've put in, it's night and day. And now, with our son in college and our daughter getting close, expenses have only gone up. I can't keep doing it alone." The judge listened, expression unreadable. When he finished, she turned to me. "Ms. Davis, do you wish to respond?" I swallowed, stood up, and carried the binder with me as I walked to the stand. My legs felt wobbly, like I'd stood up too fast, but I managed to keep my shoulders straight. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My voice shook on the first word, but steadied on the second. "I do. Go ahead." I set the binder on the small ledge in front of me and opened it. The plastic page protectors squeaked softly. I took a breath. "Your Honor, I disagree with my ex-husband's description," I said. "I've been the one paying for a large portion of our kids' expenses for years: daycare when they were little, school fees, sports, copies, clothes, gas, lunches. I don't expect a medal for that. I'm their mother. But I do expect the truth to be reflected in this court." I slid the first set of documents forward. "I've brought records to show what I've contributed." The judge leaned forward slightly. "What are we looking at here?" "This," I said, tapping the top page with a finger that I realized was trembling, "is a summary spreadsheet I made. It lists dates, amounts, and what the payments were for school, medical, activities, and which child they were for. Each line refers to a corresponding bank statement or receipt that's in this binder." I handed a copy to the judge and one to Mark's lawyer. The judge adjusted her glasses and began to read. The room felt very quiet. For example, I continued. On September 5th of last year, I paid $75 to the high school for my daughter's band fees. That's here line 46. I flipped to a tab, pulled out a bank statement with a highlighted line, and placed it on top. This is the bank statement showing that payment. And I also have a text from Mr. Davis the next day that says, quote, "Thanks for covering band again. I'll get the next thing." Mark's lawyer shifted in his seat. Mark's face flushed, just slightly. The judge looked at the text printout I'd included. "And you have similar documentation for other expenses?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My throat tightened, but I pushed on. "I have daycare invoices from when the children were small with my checks attached. I have school district receipts from elementary, middle, and high school registration fees, lunches, field trips. I have payment confirmations for sports, soccer, basketball, track. I have medical copy receipts for urgent care visits, prescriptions, dentist appointments. All of them are paid by me from my accounts." I flipped through the binder, each page protector making that little plastic sound. With every turn, I felt a bit of strength coming back into my voice. "I'm not saying their father never paid anything," I added. "He did, but the claim that I did not meaningfully contribute, or that I never supported the kids financially, is simply not true." Judge spent a good few minutes looking through the spreadsheet and matching the highlighted lines on the statements to the descriptions. She asked a couple of short questions. This payment to Springfield School, that was for registration. These checks to Little Steps Daycare, that's daycare when they were toddlers. And I answered each one as clearly as I could. Then she turned to Mark's lawyer. "Counselor, have you reviewed this material?" He cleared his throat. "We just received copies today, Your Honor. I haven't had time to fully." "Well, take a moment," she said. Her tone wasn't unkind, but it was firm. He skimmed page after page, jaw tightening as he went. "Mr. Davis," the judge said finally, turning her attention back to Mark. "You submitted an affidavit saying Ms. Davis has not consistently contributed, and at times provided no support at all. Looking at this, I see years of fairly regular payments, school fees, medical expenses, direct transfers noted as for kids. Would you like to explain that discrepancy?" For the first time that morning, Mark looked unsure. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I guess I overstated things," he said. "I mean, sure, she helped sometimes, but I've always felt like I was doing more." "That may be how you feel," the judge said, "but what matters here is what's actually happened. And the paper trail shows that Ms. Davis has been contributing in a significant and consistent way." Silence fell like a blanket. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. The judge closed the file with a soft thud. "Based on the evidence presented," she said, "I am not persuaded that Mr. Davis has been solely or even primarily responsible for the children's support. I see no basis to grant the modification he is requesting. The existing child support order will remain in place. Furthermore, I will be adding these documents to the file to reflect Ms. Davis's contributions going forward." Mark's lawyer opened his mouth like he might argue, then thought better of it. Danielle stared at the floor. The judge looked at me then, and her expression softened a fraction. "Ms. Davis," she said, "I appreciate the thoroughness of your records. You've done what many parents do, quietly pay what needs paying without much thought that you might one day have to prove it. I'm sorry that you did, but you've done so, and clearly." My eyes burned, but I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you, Your Honor," I managed. She banged her gavel lightly. "We're adjourned." Just like that, it was over. No dramatic shouting, no tearful reconciliations, just a stack of paper on a judge's desk and a narrative that didn't get to be rewritten after all. I walked out of the courtroom with my binder against my chest, my hands still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. Outside, The air felt sharper than when I'd walked in. I wasn't sure if it was the weather or just the way my lungs finally drew a full breath. The courthouse steps were chipped at the edges, the railing cool under my palm as I walked down, one careful step at a time. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long minute before starting it. The binder lay on the passenger seat, the navy cover catching a strip of sunlight through the windshield. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning. Just tired, bone-deep tired. I texted Mia. Judge denied Dad's request. All good. We'll talk later. Love you. 3 dots appeared then. Okay. Love you too. I thought about texting Tyler too, but I decided to wait until I could call him and actually talk it through. Dollar Tree had that cheap kind of fluorescent lighting that made everything look a little washed out, but I stopped there on the way home anyway. We were out of dish soap and toilet paper. Life doesn't pause for court cases. I grabbed what we needed, plus a candy bar I hadn't planned on. A little celebration, I told myself. When I walked into the apartment, the familiar smell of the nail salon downstairs drifted up, the acetone, and something floral trying to cover it. I dropped my keys in the chipped bowl by the door and set the binder gently on the kitchen table like it was something fragile. For a second, I just stood there looking at it. Then I exhaled and started making coffee. By the time Mia came home from school, the sun was low and the apartment was filled with that dim, soft light I've always liked. She tossed her backpack down and hovered by the doorway. "How'd it go?" she asked. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat at the table, motioning for her to join me. "It went," I said. The judge looked at everything. All the receipts, the bank statements, the texts. She decided your dad's request didn't have any basis. So child support stays the same. More importantly, the court record now shows what I've been paying. Mia nodded slowly, absorbing it. "So she believed you." "She believed the paperwork," I said with a small smile. "That's how it works in there." She looked at the binder. "Is all that from us, like our stuff?" "Yeah," I said. I flipped it open to a random section, middle school fees. "See, that's your 7th grade field trip to the Science Museum. I paid half, your dad paid half. That's your band uniform. That's Tyler's baseball registration." She scanned the pages, finger tracing the highlighted lines. "I had no idea you kept all this," she murmured. "Honestly, I didn't keep it for this," I said. "I kept it because I'm forgetful, and I like to know where my money went." I never thought I'd be standing in front of a judge explaining line by line what I did for my kids. Mia bit her lip. "Dad said some stuff that made it sound like you didn't really help." I kinda didn't know what to think, but seeing this, she gestured at the binder. "It makes sense. I remember you writing checks and going online all the time." I felt a little ache in my chest. "You were a kid," I said. "You weren't supposed to keep track. That was my job." She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Thanks, Mom. For all of it, I mean, not just the receipts." That hit harder than the judge's compliment. Later that night, after Mia was in her room and the dishes were done, I called Tyler. He picked up on the 3rd ring from what sounded like a dorm hallway. "Hey, Mom, how'd it go?" I told him the short version. He whistled low. "Dang, so Dad tried to say you didn't help at all." "That's what he wrote," I said. "The judge didn't agree." "I'm glad," he said. "I remember you paying for stuff all the time. He'd always tell me he was broke." "Well," I said carefully, "I'm not trying to make you pick sides, but I needed to make sure the court saw what was real." "I get it," he replied. Honestly, it's kind of a relief. I always felt weird when he talked like he was this solo hero. It didn't match what I saw growing up. Talked about his classes after that, about a girl he liked, about how the cafeteria food was somehow getting worse. Ordinary little things. When I hung up, I felt another layer of something heavy slide off. Mark texted later that night. Just one message. "Hope you're happy." I stared at it for a minute, then put my phone down without replying. There was a time I would have tried to smooth it over, send something like, "It's not about that. I just had to tell my side." Now I just felt done. The court had seen what needed to be seen. I didn't owe him a second audience. The external changes after that weren't dramatic, but they were real. The child support stayed as it was. There was no retroactive adjustment in his favor. The file at the courthouse now held my binder's contents, or at least copies, years of little payments that added up to life. If he tried something similar in the future, the judge wouldn't be starting from his story alone. At home, things settled back into their old rhythm with some new layers. I still got up at 6:10, still made coffee, still checked the bank app, and did the quiet morning math. Bills didn't magically shrink, groceries didn't get cheaper. But when I looked at the rent notice on the fridge or the school portal on my phone, I saw it a little differently. I wasn't just spending money, I was building a record, whether I ever needed it again or not. I added one more tab to the binder, a week after court, going forward. That's where I slid each new school receipt, each new copy, each new transfer labeled for Mia or for Tyler. Not out of paranoia, exactly, but out of a kind of self-respect. My contributions weren't invisible to me anymore. My relationship with Mark cooled further, which I suppose was inevitable. We kept communication about the kids to texts and emails. If he wanted to talk about anything beyond pickup times or holidays, I redirected him back to the practical. No more late-night calls where he vented about money, and I reassured him. No more paying for things off the books that he said he'd make right later. If it wasn't in writing, it wasn't happening. That was my new rule. With the kids, things were better in small ways. Mia started double-checking with me when her dad said something about money. Not to fact-check him exactly, but just to understand the whole picture. Tyler joked once, "You should teach a class on surviving co-parenting." I laughed, but the truth of it stung a little. There were quiet moments when the impact of it all hit me. Doing dishes one evening, hot water running over my hands, the TV murmuring some game show in the background. I caught sight of the binder on the shelf through the reflection in the microwave door. It looked ordinary, just another object in a cluttered life. But I knew what was inside. I knew what it represented. Another time, driving home from work as the sun set pink over the strip malls, I found myself gripping the steering wheel a little looser. For years, I'd carried this low-level fear that if someone in authority really looked at my life, they'd find me lacking. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough anything. Standing in that courtroom with my pages of proof had changed something fundamental. The judge hadn't seen a failure. She'd seen a parent who showed up. It didn't make me perfect. There were still nights I snapped at Mia when I was tired, still bills that stressed me out, still worry about Tyler's student loans. But I stopped second guessing myself every time Mark questioned my version of events. I had literally laid out the math. I'd seen the judge nod. The weeks after, a friend from the clinic pulled me aside on a break. "Heard you had a rough court thing," she said, handing me a cup of coffee. "Word gets around in small offices." "You okay?" "I am now," I said. And as I said it, I realized it was true. Sometimes after dinner, I'd pull out the binder not to add anything, just to flip through the pages. The kids would roll their eyes, Mom and her binder, but there was affection in it. To me, it wasn't just paper. It was a record of every quiet yes I'd said to my children when they needed something. Every time I'd chosen their field trip over my new shoes, their inhaler over my hair appointment. I didn't think I'd ever forget the look on Mark's face when the judge asked him to explain the discrepancy between his story and the documents in front of her. Part of me wished it hadn't had to come to that. Another part of me was fiercely glad it had, because for the first time in a long time, someone with authority had looked at my life and told me in so many words, "I see what you did." And that, more than the unchanged child support order, was what let me sleep at night. By the time a month had passed, the binder had found a permanent home on the top shelf of the hall closet, right next to the extra blankets and the box of Christmas lights. I put it there on purpose, close enough to reach if I ever needed it again, but not staring at me from the kitchen table anymore like an open wound. Sometimes, usually on Sunday afternoons when the laundry was going and the house was relatively calm, I'd open that closet door to grab something and my eyes would land on the spine of it. Plain navy, slightly bent from use, a handwritten label slipping down the side. Kids' expenses records. To anybody else, it would look like just another piece of clutter in a life full of it. But to me, it had become something else altogether. When you're a mom, especially one who's juggling rent and copies and homework and car trouble, you get used to doing a lot of things no one sees. Packing lunches at 10 p.m. after a long workday. Sitting in urgent care at midnight because somebody's fever spiked. Filling out school forms on your lunch break so your kid can go on a trip. Swiping your card again and again and again for things that never get posted about on social media. For years, I treated all of that like background noise. It was just what you did. I barely remembered half of it until I started laying those receipts down in straight lines on the table. Suddenly, all the invisible things I'd done had dates and amounts attached. They had ink. They had weight. That binder, in a way, is like the second set of bones under this little household of ours. The first ones are the real bones mine, getting a little creaky, but still carrying me to work and back Tyler's, stretching into adulthood Mia's, still growing. The second set is paper, lines of numbers and notes that show how we've held this life together. Nobody sees them when they walk into my apartment. They see the thrift store couch, the crooked picture frames, maybe the stack of dishes in the sink. They don't see the structure underneath, the payments that kept the lights on and the kids on the soccer field. I used to think keeping the peace was more important than keeping records. That if I didn't make a fuss, if I didn't correct every exaggeration or flat-out lie, the kids would be spared more drama. When Mark was late with support and I covered the gap, I told myself it was better not to drag Court into it. When he told his version of who did what, I'd bite my tongue and change the subject. I thought I was choosing harmony. But that day in court, listening to him say I never supported the kids, I realized what my silence had cost me. It gave him a blank page to write whatever made him look good. It let our history be something he could edit on the fly, depending on who was listening. I learned there's a difference between being peaceful and being erased. The binder doesn't scream or slam doors. It doesn't call names. It doesn't even care how charming somebody sounds. It just sits there quietly, with its columns and its highlights, and says, "Here is what actually happened." In a world where people will spin a story as far as they can get away with it, that kind of quiet is powerful. I'm not saying everyone should turn their life into a spreadsheet. Lord knows, most days, I barely have time to fold the laundry before bed. But I will say this, if you're the one who keeps showing up, the one who pays the fees and signs the forms and covers the gaps when somebody else drops the ball, it's okay to keep proof of that. Not because you're planning a courtroom speech, but because your own memory, your own sense of reality deserves backup. Boundaries used to sound harsh to me, like a wall going up. Now they look more like a file cabinet, a simple, steady way of saying, this is what I will do, and this is what I won't. This is what I paid, and this is what I can't pay. This is the story as it really happened. If the last few months taught me anything, it's that being the nice one doesn't mean letting people walk all over the truth. You can be kind and still keep receipts. You can love your kids and still insist that the record of who showed up for them is accurate. You can want peace and still refuse to disappear. So I keep that binder on the shelf, not as a weapon, but as a kind of foundation stone. Reminder to myself that my work counted, even when nobody clapped for it. A reminder that when push came to shove, the story I'd been living all these years was solid enough to hold up under fluorescent lights and a judge's questions. One day, when the kids are older and maybe going through their own messes, I might pull it down and show them not to shame anybody, but to say, this is what showing up looks like. For now, it's enough that I know. In the end, honey, people can talk all they want, but those numbers on paper, that's where the truth sits.